what we're bringing home here is that a lot of these habits, a lot of these traits have had negative biases superimposed over them. And some of these we have taken with us, and we have told ourselves that that's the truth, and they're not necessarily the truth. So we need to look at, is there actually a moral or ethical failing here in what I'm doing? And it's going to depend on the context of what you're doing and all the peripherals.
Good.
Yeah.
You drinking tea? We're tea drinkers today?
Yep, I got my detox tea because after filming an episode about preventing burnout, I promptly hit a skid of burnout for a few days. Yeah, I hit episode number 2. Oh, I never work for more than 2 hours at a time anymore. Got all cocky. And then got super into editing and figuring out all the podcast stuff.
Yeah.
So I went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs doing that. Got like mega hyper focus.
Oh, man.
And then we filmed that episode, and we should have gone to bed instead. I'm happy with how the episode came out. It's not about the quality, it's about the aftermath, which was, of course, the point of the entire episode, is that we have to figure out where our limits are so that we don't have regrets. And I had regrets, for sure.
What great lessons learned. What a great lesson.
It's like when you think you're doing stuff for other people, but God's actually like, hey, this is
Actually for you?
actually for you. Yeah.
Oh.
So bearing that in mind,
Me?
did you have any fallout from the last episode?
Yeah, I burned out. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Well, because we were taking supplements that we don't usually take.
Oh,
We're
you
taking
those
like
brain pills.
yeah, we've been doing this like 3-month detox
Cellular
thing.
detox thing.
Yeah, so it's the brain phase,
Yeah.
and yeah, it hit us kind of hard, and
I was like sad.
yeah, he did.
I was emotional.
You almost cried one day.
I actually cried. I didn't almost.
Just because you were tired. You were just
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, I've never seen you do this.
Yeah.
So, but we had our detective skills going, right? So like, okay, this is a little out of the ordinary. Let's ask some questions. And we did kind of trace it back to the pills. So it was, and luckily it's a 1 week on, 1 week off situation. So we're in the clear right now. We're both mentally a little more.
Yeah, that's what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say hello to all the listeners out there.
Hey, all the listeners out there. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being part of this community. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe in the place where you're listening while you're still here and mentally present.
What are they subscribing to?
The podcast, so you get episode alerts from your favorite platform. You could also sign up for email subscription. You can get another reminder from that. We're also going to be sending out some helpful content to help you keep the fire tamed throughout the week between episodes. More self-awareness, self-acceptance, surrendering these things throughout the week to the Lord.
Should we identify what the podcast is?
Welcome to the NeuroSpicy SoulCare podcast, where we help you to turn down the fire and embrace the spice for the glory of God. This is for those with ADHD, high masking autism. If you were diagnosed a long time ago, maybe you were diagnosed with Asperger's.
Mm-hmm.
So they literally call it formerly Asperger's.
Formerly Asperger's.
Yeah,
It's like
you
a
can't
formerly
say-
like known as Prince situation.
Yeah, formerly known as Voldemort. You can't say it 'cause it's like bad. This guy was a Nazi. That's why they don't call it Asperger's anymore. Like for
Yeah,
real.
yeah. Because he was
So-
kind of wild. Yes. Hello. I am Frank, and this is the host of the show,
Carla Padilla.
Carla Padilla. Welcome to the pod.
Welcome to the pod.
Okay. So we almost let the cat out of the bag before we actually have said hello to everybody. But can we peek under the hood as to what are we talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's set it up. So we're going to be talking about the situations and the traits we have because of our neurotypes. We can feel bad about them. And some of them are actually morally neutral. So moral neutrality is basically a term that just means it is neither good nor bad. Some of these things are neither good nor bad, but it's more about the situations that we get ourselves into, how those situations feel, how we feel inside, how people are responding to us outside, whether we're getting rejection or criticism or whatever it is. So we have associations with these things that can feel good or bad, but trying to separate our behaviors from the morality of them. And then also talking about condemnation, right? Sometimes we're carrying undue bad associations and we apply those associations to ourselves instead of just to the scenarios where things didn't go very nicely. So we're going to separate morally neutral habits and traits from the condemnation that can be applied to us from cultural conditioning or just family upbringing, work situations, school situations, friend situations. We can learn to apply good or bad things to things that are not necessarily good or bad. And then in the middle, or in between it all, is sanctification.
Oh boy.
So becoming more Christ-like.
Dropping the big S word today. Yikes.
Yeah, so sometimes we have to fight against our natural bent in order to be more like Christ, and sometimes we actually need to embrace our natural inclinations to be more like Christ, because a lot of times when we carry, ooh, wow, we're getting this early, but when we carry a lot of self-criticism, we can be highly critical of others. So the more of these things we can learn to not necessarily like befriend, but just be at ease with to say this is a neutral thing, this is not a bad thing. And we're able to apply those things to other people when they're doing something that we wouldn't usually jive with.
Do you think that we can kind of connect this sort of idea to the biblical thought that you will be measured to whatever you measure by?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So that well, I think we're gonna get back
Mhm.
into that, but yeah, that's sort of like some theological,
Mhm.
headway we might be able to probe into a little bit.
Totally. Because if like let's say
Ooh, we're going to hypotheticals already. I
I,
love it.
I think this is part of the setup, is just kind of like, why do we need to talk about this? Because let's say you're a person who's just recently coming around to the idea that you might have ADHD or that you might be a high masker.
Hmm.
Um, so this was my experience. So this is why this is popping into my head. You might be wrestling with thoughts, or you might have wrestled with thoughts in the past that, like, I'm doing all the work. Why can't they do the work? Or like I do 5 times more mental gymnastics to get this done, but they're just saying, "Oh, well, I have ADHD, so like
Hmm.
I struggle with it." So
Yeah.
sometimes we stay doing the most to try to keep up, not realizing that we're actually at a disadvantage that is draining us in like a life force fundamental kind of way, and it leads us to do things that we're not wired to do, which leads to languishing and burnout, which I have had many, many, many cycles of before discovering my neurodivergent traits. Was always operating in ways that like I could do, but that were not right for me. So I expended a lot more energy. So you live in this zone where you think, well, I'm doing all this work. Why isn't everybody else doing this work? So you
Yeah.
can keep a highly critical mentality.
There's a bit of, I know we're talking about like the main topic right now is like moral neutrality, right?
Hmm.
But like, I think there's something inherently, let's say, not good. A lot of times, and this has been also my experience when I'm like doing the most, is I can internalize like the fallacy of whataboutism.
Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so whataboutism, it's sort of this train of thought where it always or where it always begins, what about this,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's like keeping the score
Mm.
like on like everything and everyone and all of their actions.
Yeah.
And like, you're like seeing people get away with stuff or you're seeing people slide and you're like, kind of tweaking out on trying to do the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then like in your head, at least for me, is like when I hold a really hard line when like I am not in a healthy space and I feel that I am wronged by what other people do or
Yeah.
don't do. So then I rationalize my displeasure, or I will wrong somebody on this fake, this really evil notion of, well, what about all the stuff that I did?
Mm-hmm.
I, I deserve X, Y, or Z, right? This is where the
Right.
measure stuff coming in. Once you start measuring your worth to what you do, you're already
You're living
you
like in a graceless
yeah,
paradigm. Right.
you've already rolled down the hill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even before you start,
No grace for you, no grace for nobody.
no, no
You
grace
become
for
the
you.
grace. You
No
become the
grace
grace
for you.
Nazi. No,
No grace for you.
it's grace for you.
Yeah, absolutely none. Um, but yeah,
I said Nazi twice already. That's 3 times.
oh,
I'm not gonna say it anymore.
as long as we don't get to 9. No?
I'm keeping that.
Oh man.
So funny.
All right.
I love you.
What we're talking about? Oh, yeah, bro, neutrality.
Neutrality.
Yeah.
Using the word Nazi is morally neutral. Being a Nazi is
Is
not morally
no,
neutral.
no, that's not good.
So keep an eye out for that. But first, we're going to talk about cultural and family conditioning, not as like strict terms, just as a category that ChatGPT gave me after I typed in my ideas.
We need notes somehow, you know?
Because, okay, and let's just like briefly talk about how wonderful it is to be a person with neurodiverse traits and to have something like ChatGPT as a creative person. Because as a creative person, you have so many ideas, and to prevent burnout and to keep yourself in the pocket of
Oh,
purpose, like
keep yourself in the pocket of purpose.
put that on a t-shirt and put it on
Man,
the pocket.
you're throwing fuego today. I'm so excited.
So exciting new concept, staying in the pocket of purpose. That'd be a great episode. Keeping yourself in the pocket of purpose. So anyway, ChatGPT, great tool. So anyway, the world can sometimes define good behavior based on productivity and consistency and emotional restraint and just not standing out, just being like not taking bad or good attention away from other people is just more like smiled upon in society. Um,
Do you think this is like a status quo situation?
I think in some
Oh,
cases,
okay.
yeah, it's just, and then in families it can be the sit still, don't talk back to me, why are you being so sensitive kind of
Mm,
stuff. And again, those are things that like you're drawing attention, you're not going with the flow, you're requiring things that are out of the ordinary. That's what all these things are responses to. So, and especially with high maskers and late diagnosed people, performance becomes a method of survival. So we just
yeah,
talked about it at the
yeah.
beginning of the show, right? Like I am trying to take the temperature of everything around me all the time so that I can gauge what my behavior is supposed to be. And that is so much harder for me than the people around me. And I don't even know that.
Wow.
So I'm saying, wow, I'm willing to work so hard and everyone's just doing what's so easy. And the thing is that you're right
Yeah.
because it is easier for
There's something just so insidious about that. You know what I mean? Like when you just said, like, what am I supposed to like do, act, and feel, um, or perform, right? So I could fit in rather than being expressive or understanding your own emotions or any of that. That's 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 not good. I mean,
yeah.
I've lived in that.
Right. Because you're
Yeah.
taught through your very keen, overactive powers of observation
Mhm.
that those things aren't valued and that they're not important to anybody but you.
Can like
So
yeah,
you're the problem because
get
it's not important to anybody but you. That's why it's so hard to live masked, and
mhm.
that's why it's so hard to be misunderstood. Um, yeah, so there becomes a lot of internalized shame because typically what happens is you express a behavior, like let's say you're stimming, right? Like you can't sit still as a kid and you can't help it. You don't even realize you're doing it. You don't realize that you're shaking the table. You don't realize you're making an annoying noise. You don't realize that you
Yeah.
look like a ditz because you're twirling your hair and they're saying you shouldn't do that. And then because you're doing an activity that is expressing a silent need and then you're shamed for that, you internalize that shame. And it's not shame over the behavior, it's the shame over your need.
That's really heavy.
Yeah. So you can see how compiling these opinions of yourself based on outward reactions can become really, really troublesome, really, really heavy, and it keeps your mask on so thick, which is taking away emotional energy, energy you need to regulate yourself so that you have bandwidth to engage in things that God is calling you into instead of just surviving. So we're just, again, we're in kind of this self awareness phase of the podcast where we're kind of bringing attention, shedding light on some stuff so that we can see what is it that is like mental, what do I have control over, what could I actually work on in a more practical habit-based way, and then what of this are like wounds and what of this are maybe even family sin patterns, and then what of this is just like I have crutched on this behavior for a long time, and basically like how can I ask the spirit to expose things in me in a gentle way in the right order because that's how the spirit does it, right? In a myriad of ways,
Yeah.
one step at a time. Like, how can I let go of some of these behaviors in such a severe way? Or completely, if they're hurting people, how can I work with the Holy Spirit to heal and grow so that I can be free and that my relationships can be better?
And you know what I think is like really ironic? Sometimes, what I'm trying to roll back here. What I think is really interesting is that in order to figure out what your behavior is actually doing, you need so much initial introspection, and then you actually need like a community of people to help you get the like all the way,
Mm.
right? Doing that all internally might
It's
be
almost
really, it's
impossible,
impossible to
right?
do.
I mean, by its definition, um, autism is a profile of traits that is self-referencing.
Mm,
So you're really only able to go as far as you've gone. And obviously, when you're trying to grow out of what you're doing, you have to go outside of
yeah.
yourself. So, but it is interesting to be able to do that with other people who have similar traits or like just traits in the autistic or the ADHD profile because even though you're self-referencing, you're doing it out loud together.
Hmm.
And so
It's
it's
yeah,
still
you
technically
got to do it with your
self-referencing,
people,
right?
though.
So, but that verbal
Hmm.
processing and comparing
Hmm.
the internal
Hmm.
experiences can be validating, right? Like, oh yeah, like actually I feel this too. So when you've gone through your whole childhood going, nobody cares about this but me, but really it's nobody cares about this but people with these profiles. So verbally processing in groups in community is really important. And like really the community between in our house is so
Yeah.
helpful because we're able to like identify it because we're like, especially when your parents unmasking with your kids, which is a total train wreck. We'll have an episode on that. For a while, it's a
Uh,
train wreck, and then it smooths out and it's magical and wonderful. But to be able to like to say out loud in your own home, I'm feeling really dysregulated right now, and
mhm,
everybody knows what you mean,
mhm,
and and then everybody is like, hey, well, like we can turn our music down, do you want us to do that, or like do you want me to get you a glass of water? Like everybody understands what that feels like and we're like ready to support each other, which is really cool. So
that's
yeah,
service. That's just people serving people in a
totally.
way that is like purposely effective for them.
Right. And that's what we're saying by like sometimes embracing these behaviors can actually make us more like Christ because we're able to have acceptance and empathy for them when other people aren't there yet. And to just say, hey, you don't have to be upset. Like, let me just help you. Let me just get you a snack, period.
A
So,
snack and a nap goes a long way.
yeah, baby Elijah treatment. Let's do it.
All right, what do we got here? Go.
So we've kind of already talked about there's kind of like this false moral framework around things that are productive and consistent and accepted. And but that doesn't mean that there's not actual morality at work in some of the things that we're doing. So I use the example like when I asked questions to my dad after he would ask me to do something and I wasn't meaning to talk back, right? Like, actually, this is going to get complicated really fast. I thought this was going to be a simple example. It's actually very complicated
Oh boy, here we go.
because when my dad says, I want you to like go get in the car. And I'm like, okay, where are we going? And he's like, don't talk back to me, just get in the car. The question, why do I need to get in the car, is morally neutral.
Mhm.
My desire for more information in a situation is morally neutral. However, my father told me to get in the car. And so this complicates things because my objective as a child is to honor my father and mother, right? So there's two things that can happen. Because if I ask the question and my father says, get in the car, I don't have to tell you, then I should get in the car. But my father could also respond to me and say, oh, we're just going to the grocery store and I want to get there before it closes. Okay, so this does two things. One is I've closed my information gap. And now I know, oh, okay, dad wants to go to the store. Sure. Now I can hurry. So, and now I can honor him with the extra information and actually do it better because now I don't have like the mystery of that missing information. But like so it's like the questioning itself is morally neutral, but if what I learn is that my father only receives the fact that he's being honored if I listen to him without asking him a question, as a child, I have to make the decision to get in the car.
Yeah.
So when I grow up, like let's say you ask me to do something and you're like, well, you're not going to tell me to get in the car because I'll already know what's happening. But like,
Get in the car.
hey, woman, get in the car.
Hey, lady.
Um, hey, lady. Where if you're just like, hey, could you throw my laundry in? And sometimes I feel like that's a selfish request because none of my clothes are clean or like I had
Yeah.
planned on running towels, but you and I have a framework where like if we need some clarifying questions so that we can do a better job and like feel better about what we're doing, that's totally okay. So if I say, well, why? But like if I say, no, I want to do towel, like, like, so it's more at this point, it becomes more about a loving response and grace that meets the occasion.
For sure. You started doing like a side-by-side analysis about it. I think that's really, really important because at the end of it, right, what we start you start branching off into the need for more information doesn't have any like moral positive or negative,
Mm-hmm.
which is true, right? But like the unmet need for that information as an autistic person
Mm-hmm.
um is
So now I'm
yeah,
internalizing shame over needing more
right.
information.
Right, yeah. So it is in itself it, it it's the not knowing
Mm-hmm.
sort of situation, right? We have if you ran the side by side, right? I should have just gotten in the car. Yeah, that's how I honor my mother and my father, right? And then on these other side, just a simple clarification would help me along to be able to follow that commandment,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you know, it's crazy, like as parents, how easy it is to slip out of that understanding about like, okay, my kid's doing this thing for a need,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because of his or her neurodivergency, and just like how much better can I serve my child to be able to listen to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, right? So I'm moving away from hypothetical
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like me and us here because right, like your dad had no idea that
Right.
you autistic or or had ADD or anything like this, right?
Yeah.
But um, but this is for like parents
Mm-hmm.
with neurodivergent children, and it's really hard to draw that line of am I serving my child by right giving more information, which is a super common autistic trait for children to
Mm-hmm.
want. They want to be able to paint what they're looking at, right?
Well, that's also an ADHD thing, right? Because you can't create urgency unless you have a real reason.
Mhm.
So if there's a reason, you're actually providing them the dopamine of knowing that they're helping you accomplish the thing that you want to accomplish.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, for those parents out there that are struggling with like, that kid that just asks a lot of questions,
It's
I
not
f-
even
I f-
defiance most of the
one
time.
one I feel you. We feel
Yeah,
you
totally.
100%.
You get questioned to death some
It,
days. It's like death by
yeah,
a thousand cuts.
yeah, it's tough. But making that effort when you're able
Mm-hmm.
to be able to invest that social capital into your child will re will give you returns in just, and we're not even talking about like obedience or like just doing what you tell him to do,
Mm-hmm.
but like in overall health of the child,
Yes.
in like how they're adapting and how are they relating to others.
Mm-hmm.
And, like something simple like answering a set of 5 questions in 5 seconds for your child
Mm-hmm.
could really mean the difference between them having a great day
Or
or them just absolutely
or
melting
kicking
down.
and screaming. Right. Like,
Yeah.
why do you want me to wear I want to wear my ballet shoes. I don't want to wear my sneakers. But
Yeah.
then if you explain, like, well, we're going to the park. Well, I
Mhm.
can wear my ballet shoes to the park. Well, it's the park that has sand at it. And I know you don't like sand in your
So
shoes
you
and you
should
don't.
wear the boots.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
wear yeah. So sometimes that makes it, but there's this also, like, you can see how much nuance already just in
Mhm.
something so simple as the fact that people like a more complete information set when they have these neurodiverse profiles. So what I had to tell my kids when they nickel and dime you to death with all the questions, it's like, okay, here's what I need from you. If I say I need you to do the recycling, and you want to know if it's because we're having company, because now you're excited, or if you want to know if the recycling goes out tomorrow,
Yeah.
or is it full, or like, these are legitimate questions.
Mhm.
Okay, but I'm like, what I need you to do is I need you to start obeying me first.
Mhm.
I need you to make a move to show me that you heard me and that you're respecting what I'm asking you to do. While you're doing it, or while you're on your way there, go ahead and ask me a
We'll
question.
have that conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so again, there's just more and more nuance as they get
Mhm.
older, is because, because I keep telling them, like, they're gonna sometimes, there could come a time when I ask you to do something and you don't understand it, but it is a matter of utmost importance because it is for your safety and it is time sensitive.
Mhm.
So that's why I always need you to trust the fact that I'm telling you to do something that is for your good. This is just like God, right? Like, this is
Mhm.
like
Mhm. Yeah.
meta God lessons 101, right?
Yeah.
Like, I need you to obey first, and if you need reassurance through questioning me, I will give you the reassurance as you go and do it.
Mhm.
But it's very important that, like, you don't have it backwards. You're
Yeah.
not going to have all the information all
And
the time. I
and
just need you to do it.
and you know what? I want to touch on a little bit before we move on from this
Mm-hmm.
particular conversation that every day will paint itself differently
Yeah.
too with all this.
Context is everything.
Oh yeah, everything is for sure context.
Mm.
So, what works for us in this house and how we work it, we're
Right.
happy to talk about, Sometimes that can help other people and sometimes not, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have children with a certain set of issues
Right.
in neurodivergence.
So our kids, just to clarify, we have two low support needs kids and we have one moderate support needs child. And her support needs have gone down as we've, discovered and cared for and done all the things. But that's what we are working with on a
Yeah.
regular basis. So basically, I have a list of like a whole bunch of things.
Mhm.
We're gonna kind of rattle through some of them, and then we'll talk about some of them specifically with more of these nuanced kind of situations. But the goal is to take this behavior or situation that has some kind of connotation that somebody has applied to it and say, is this morally neutral or is this not morally neutral? And then be able to say, how can I reframe the way I'm thinking about this behavior where I can separate myself from what other people have superimposed on it and, like, affirm that I'm meeting a need or that I'm not actually doing anything wrong, especially like as you grow up and then you have your own home. I don't have to put my shoes in a certain spot if I don't want to anymore. If I absentmindedly take my shoes off and they're always in one place,
Mhm.
that's morally neutral unless, like, you know, my husband really hates tripping over my shoes when I put them in a certain place. And then it would be kind of me to honor that and put those shoes somewhere else. That was not a dig. I'm sorry. Okay.
That's usually flip-flopped, okay? So
That was a thinly veiled.
no, 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 no. This is fine. This is fine.
It was just an example. Let's just keep moving. It was just a ready thing. Um,
It's a little too ready.
Sorry. So how do we reframe these things to
Mm.
be compassionate to ourselves? And then also, how can we also acknowledge how possibly the trauma of how we internalize people's reactions, how do they make this particular thing feel worse to us? So how does trauma exacerbate that thing that we do, either in how it feels or how we do it? And then also, are there any legitimate spiritual components to this? So we're always going to start with the practical unless God exposes the spiritual first, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, because we can't force God to expose things to us. God is gracious and kind and gentle, and we are just like onions of brokenness. So it's not, he's not going to go for the thing all the way in the inside. He's not going to uh, like kung fu your heart out of your chest and then fix that. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to start from the outside and like
Yeah.
go in.
Maybe, but like 9 times out of 10, no. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Some of us just get overhauls at conversion
And
and
that's amazing. Praise God. Praise God.
yes, for sure. But what really kind of part of the premise of the show, why we're taking a holistic approach of like the practical, physical, like mental, psychological, and then the spiritual and supernatural is because like these things are highly connected. So oftentimes when we work on something in our body, we notice something in our spirit start to kind of shake loose,
Mhm.
and then it can be more accessible because we're not crutching on that physical thing. So any steps toward self-improvement hand in hand with our faith will always yield spiritual results, in my opinion. Like
Mm.
I think that's like a pretty
Mm.
sound thing to say. What do you think about that?
I'm not gonna argue that.
Yeah, I think it's like, like when you go to therapy and you have a tool for something and then you realize that the tool's not working and your response is like way out of proportion with what happened, it's a lot easier to recognize, wow, I think like I'm really being affected by something in more of like an irrational spiritual way where like I'm under some kind of deception that I need to surrender to the Lord.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's
And, a lot of that is, hurt, trauma, and sin patterns are so interwoven,
yes, exactly. Yeah. So we can't just jump straight to being like, you know, you have a demon of chaos because your house is a mess. Like we gotta
Yeah.
tread lightly with
Yeah.
that.
Man,
And so and also this goes the same with the diagnosis, right? We can't be upset with people for owning their diagnosis because that is a first step of awareness so that they can work on the physical and the mental and start to release some of the things that they crutch on and the things that they assume are fixed. um, and when we work towards understanding and resolving things that we now know we have a little bit of like sway over,
Mhm.
God can again use those things towards spiritual growth. We can start to shake loose some spiritual things. So if that's where people are, even if they're crutching a little too hard on it, they will grow out of it. Like they will
Mhm.
like when we got our diagnosis, I went so far down the rabbit hole. Like my special interest was autism, okay? Like many hours a day of like research and verbal processing,
Oh, I
and
remember. Yeah.
all my entire meme feed was about autism, but it only lasted like a couple months. Like you have to understand the same Holy Spirit that lives in you lives in that person. And just like, we talk about the Elijah thing, when it's time to get up and get back to work, God will let you know. When it's time to regroom your feed to have more cute animals and less autism stuff, he will let you know. And you can be obedient to that and walk back towards the middle, right? Christianity is like, I'm going off somewhere, but like, I'm just going to keep going. Christianity, everything Christianity is a set of guardrails. You can go all the way one way or all the way the other way. Like, there's grace and works, right? Like, a great example.
Yeah.
You could go all the way to grace and you could just, have all your bad behaviors, or you could go all the way to works and not accept any grace for yourself. The answer is always in the middle. That's why Christianity is a religion, is a faith of temperance. Temperance, not extremism. So any belief that anybody is espousing that is like a far right or a far left, like not even right or left, right? Just like whatever the extreme is, like biblically, if they're crutching on one side or the other, I would encourage you to challenge that. The answer is always in the middle, and it will fluctuate towards one side or the other based on the grace that meets the occasion, right? This is a hard faith. It's based on context and nuance, and that's why we're talking about this stuff. Context and nuance. It's important, especially for all of our brains, because we're constantly detecting context and nuance, context and nuance. Am I safe to stim here? Am I safe to be weird here? Am I safe to, like, you know, like sit like this in my chair? Or do I have to sit with my ankles crossed and be polite? Like we're doing that all the time anyway, and we have to be able to question those things in our faith and to say there's not one cookie cutter answer. So, um, because the context of the day changes, the people we're talking to are changing. Who we are is changing, but God does not change. Thank God, right? Like, thank Him. Praise Him, all you little children. Let's get to the list. You're a man who loves lists.
I love lists. Lists are my favorite. All
What do you
right,
want to talk about?
so we have a list of traits or scenarios that we're gonna just throw out for your thinking pleasure here. Have you ever forgot a birthday or an appointment or a deadline? Have you ever had a meltdown after being completely overloaded? Have you ever done anything so last minute? One of my favorite lines and most dangerous lines as an autistic ADD person is, if you wait last minute, it'll only take a minute.
Unfortunately, we've proven it right so
It's
many times. It's
it's
pretty much
not
dogma.
it's it's not good. It's really not good.
Always. Sometimes it's great.
It's I'm working on it. All right.
Context, right?
Fine
Fall back
temperance.
on
Fine temperance in
okay.
this.
All right, let's get through the list.
All right, come on. All right, boom, boom. Have you ever needed to be alone? Or have you ever just needed to stim? Have you ever just jumped in and interrupted a conversation?
Yeah.
That does happen. That
Mm-hmm.
does.
Oh, you missed one, and this is a good one. Task
Ooh,
switching or
yeah.
giving up on hobbies or even like switching careers. That could be one that
Hmm.
people can maybe do for.
Or interrupting.
Or interrupting,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. And what my favorite, oversharing or info dumping. Ooh, info dumping. Oh, I love it so much. One of my things. And emotional dysregulation. Have you ever been there?
Emotional regulation, being late or
Ooh,
needing
being
some longer
late.
transitions to get to the right place.
Yeah. Oh, transitions. Hard transitions are tough.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had difficulty following multi-step directions? This guy right here.
Okay, burnout.
Everyone's had burnout.
Yeah. Burnout from masking explicitly.
Have you ever avoided phone calls or
Gen
messages?
Z looking at you.
Looking right at you guys. Pick up your phone. You can text message.
All the comfy clothes and avoidant messaging, are they like a whole generation of
Maybe.
people who should listen to this podcast?
They should, maybe.
Time will tell.
Also, hyperfocus and hyperfixations.
Hyperfixation.
Hyperfixations. Uh, no, sorry. Rejection sensitivity or intense emotional reactions. The need for routine or having things be the same.
I have one more that I wanted to.
Oh,
The last one I want to talk about is having less than ideally clean spaces. I feel like this is a
do you have a mess?
huge one.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's a big bad.
All right, so that was our list. Our list of traits.
Of morally neutral traits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they themselves
in and of themselves.
are not bad
Right.
or good. These are just things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
All right. So, is there one of those that like really like
Well,
stuck out to you?
let's talk about mess. Let's just get to it.
Okay.
Let's get to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for example, let's talk about dishes and laundry first, right? These are cyclical chores, right? The ones that everyone's just like, why do they exist? Why can't we eat off of our own hands and wear paper clothes? Dishes and laundry.
Ugh.
So, they're cyclical chores, which means that they never end. Okay. So just hold that in your mind. Just reflect on that for a second. That they never end, right? Because what's the number one complaint of everybody who does those chores? I just finished the laundry and now you're so, I just finished the dishes. No, you didn't. You'll never finish the laundry and you'll never finish the dishes. And that sounds discouraging, but it's actually not. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if you have underwear and you have socks and you could get dressed today, all your people got dressed today, your laundry is adequately done. Okay? Period. Full stop.
It just takes the right amount of spoons.
Yes. If you have dishes to eat off of, even if those are paper plates, guess what? You did it. It is okay, right? So there are a couple things that happen, right? We transition into our first apartments. We're trying to learn our own structures, which is impossible. We're trying to form our own habits, which doesn't really happen, right? It's just like we're just kind of like a mess when we're young adults and on top of like just all the change, right? So much change. And then our parents come to visit us, right? And we either hyperfixate and clean everything up super fast and then it's done, or they sneak up on us and we're not ready for them and our dishes aren't done and our laundry's not done. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you live like this. Look at this huge, you have too many clothes. You should get, and there's like all of this stuff, right? So there are these judgments being made, right? Like, should you do your laundry? Yeah. Should you do your dishes? Yeah. But it's hard to separate from like, this is something I did because my parents told me to do because like I had to honor them by doing it when they said, to like, I have to figure out how to live my life and have it be manageable and also like not spend all my time and energy doing just required chores and nothing of value, like of purpose, right? Like, I'm not saying there's no value or purpose in doing those things. I'm just saying like if that is not your if what does not drive you to wake up in the morning is not dishes and laundry, then you don't want to spend all your time and energy trying to take care of that, right? In this kind of like obsessive loop of like I just have to get it done because it's the best thing for me to do, right? Here we run into literal thinking again, right? The best thing for me to do is to have me do it the extra most bestest, right? You're not Little Caesar, okay? Like, you just gotta do what you can do. Like, you can't be crazy bread all the time. You just gotta
Yeah.
get your $5 take and bake pizza. Like, you get your $5 pizza and get out. Don't get cute with it. Don't get the garlic sauce. You don't need to do all that, right? Like, sometimes chores is just like, these are things I have to do, right? And depending on, again, what fits the occasion, who is living in your house, right? Like if you're living in your in-laws' house, like sorry, but you have to honor their rules, right? Like that's the loving thing to do. Also, there's communication involved, right? Like
Yep.
if you're all adults and you're having a week where you're just like you have to communicate that,
Yeah.
right? So part of alleviating the burden of these things is we have to communicate with the people who don't understand where we're coming from. And that's one of the hardest things. But part of sin is stuff that interferes with our relationships with others. So if we're refusing to have these conversations with people because either we think they should just understand it or we think that like it's too embarrassing, that and we become like, because shame and pride are the two sides of the same coin, right? So if we're holding those things, that's getting in the way of our relationships and that can become a problem. But again, not being 100% on top of your dishes and laundry is morally neutral. So, like in our house, would launching all these new things, doing things that we have never done before,
Mm.
right? Like, we had one of those weeks where I was like, okay, Frank needs a load of laundry and we need a bunch of chonies and socks. And that's all I'm doing this week, right? Like, so there is like a small molehill of laundry at the back door, like where our laundry is. There's like a whole bunch in the closet, but like I tend to kind of go in spurts with chores like that. When you preserve your energy properly, I find that there are these little waves that happen where like all of a sudden I'll look around and be like, ooh, I really just want to knock out all these chores today. And I'll spend 2.5 hours and I will be like at peak performance and it will just all get done.
Yeah.
It
We,
might
so
happen
yeah.
every 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, but when it happens, it catches everything back up. So we tend to be more of like a let's pick up so that we can manage our level of sensory overload, right? Too many dishes, sensory overload. Like if they're all over the counter and in the sink, we don't feel good. It doesn't feel good to go to bed. It doesn't feel good to wake up in the morning. So really, I would say dishes is like our big chore that we try our hardest to keep up with, but it's because it serves us as individuals, as a couple, and as a family. So, what is the most loving way to do this, right? Bearing in mind my own limitations, the limitations of the people that I'm living with, and how can I shed, like I used to be like, well, we can't have people over because it's a mess in here. So, that shift, there might be a shift that happens where you say, like, why can't I invite people into my home when it's not pristine? Why can't I practice scruffy hospitality? I want to have a whole episode about scruffy hospitality. If you haven't read the book, The Gospel Comes with a House Key by Rosaria Butterfield, do
Oh yeah.
yourself a favor and like look into it. Such a good book. Follow me here. ADHD people, people with autistic profiles need like community. We
Hmm.
need we need people. And if we're living under this condemnation that we can't invite somebody into our home unless it's clean, and that is a constant struggle for us because it's been a struggle for us since we were in our early 20s, we will never invite people over. We'll be more isolated, and that's not what God wants for
Nope.
us. It's almost more relaxing to go to somebody's house when it's not super clean. Depends on who you are, right? But like for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this person isn't trying to like be fake and like put on all the things to make themselves look good. And that makes me feel like even personally, I don't have to put on all the things. There's something about that like just telegraphs it's okay to be yourself here because this is my actual life. This isn't a fake life that I've curated. So again, it's morally neutral. And in some ways, it can be encouraging to people to not keep a hyper pristine house. Okay. Doesn't mean like you have to live like a pig, but it doesn't mean that you have to call yourself a pig just
Mm.
because your dishes aren't done.
Yeah.
So much nuance.
So we talked about being messy.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about sort of like how it can pile shame
Mm-hmm.
on you. Um, and we definitely talked about the trauma that can come with that for
Yeah.
sure. So,
Okay. Ooh, let me add one more thing.
oh boy.
So before we move on from
Okay.
this,
Sure, sure.
thank you for like bow tying that so
Mhm.
well. So the last part we're going to talk about is possible spiritual implications. There have been times where our house has been so messy for so long, and then the kids start to behave in some kind of way. Like maybe you've experienced this, where like we have actually like bound a spirit of chaos and cast it out of our house and like almost like rededicated our house to the Lord. Sometimes that's like necessary, but that's like something that you feel out, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily like spirit of chaos first, but like but like if you have been feeling like you are trying to clean your house and you just there is something in your way every time you do it or it's like you clean something and it's almost like messier when you're done, like just ask the Lord. Like, and you know what? I'm going to caveat this too. You don't always have to jump to a spiritual thing, but if you pray against a spirit and it's not there, nothing is hurt. If you pray against a spirit and it is there, guess what? You just helped your situation. So it's always okay to do that. We just have to be careful when we do that with other people because that can hurt their feelings,
Mm.
right? Like, and it's not always about feelings, but also like you just have to know
Yeah.
that's a dynamic, right? It's context
Yeah.
and it's grace that fits the occasion.
Yeah. I
You
think.
can pray for that on your own if you're praying against somebody else's spirit and see what happens, but like you can always pray against anything that's affecting you.
Yeah. I think a good way to measure that is the rule of spirit and truth, right?
Hmm.
Like you can't just pray your house to just magically get yourself clean, right?
Yes,
You can't.
exactly.
There's like a physical component to it. So, what we're saying is it will not hurt you to pray for alleviation from that mess.
And
To
for
have
God to bring
Yeah,
order
to
into
have
it.
God, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. For God to bring order into your life and see your work not be so futile or so futile
Hmm.
and see and feel and know that God through the Spirit is helping you organize your house.
Mm-hmm.
Having that spiritual awareness that there's more to the physical nature, obviously, of this plane
Mm-hmm.
as believers of Christ. That's the paradigm.
Yeah.
Um, it's good to be engaged in both,
Yes.
in spirit and in truth, in
Mm-hmm.
what I would consider the spiritual realm and the physical realm,
Yes.
right? Not,
Our actions need to come into alignment with what we're asking God to
yeah,
do. Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I was kind of trying to to focus in, right? We talked about the trait, we talked about the issues that kind of arise, the shame or the condemnation.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about just having a messy house has no real moral, or having a mess has no moral implication. It's not going to make you a bad person. It's not going to make you a good person. It
Mm-hmm.
is just a mess, man. Um, we've talked about the trauma that comes along with it. And now we're just starting to get to just kind of reframing. How do we get from mess to order when it's necessary,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and really it's about what is God leading you to
Mhm.
do. Because there are seasons where like right now, like we just can't be pristine right now. But we've had seasons where it's been squeaky clean and it's been so good, and it's felt so good, and it allows other things to happen more easily. Um, and I think that's another thing I want to address next, the idea of feeling like you don't have follow through, or feeling like you're giving up on something, whether that's a hobby, whether that's like a career path, or anything that traditionally requires some kind of commitment, and people would ask you about, and then you would be able to tell them about progress and follow through in that area. So what can happen with this is, so let's say you start crocheting and you get like halfway into doing a scarf, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I really want to start using polymer clay. I want to make miniatures. And you go ahead and you do that thing, and then you don't touch your crochet for 6 months, and like people are like, "Oh, how's the crocheting going?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm not really doing that." And then after a while, you kind of develop this reputation for being like, "Oh, well, what are you up to this time?" Or like, "What are you doing now?" Or like people just like automatically know you're doing something new, or that you gave up on the thing. And switching interests and hobbies is morally neutral. Okay. However, right, is there a moral implication? No, not to the initial thing, right? Not to the fact that you have an interest-based nervous system, not to the fact that you got tired of one thing and you want to do another. There's no moral implication to that. However, if, like, let's say you have a whole closet full of crafting supplies, and you have like a major credit card bill, but when you get stressed out about money, you're like, oh, well, I could just spend $20 on craft supplies and that won't make a big difference. Like, there can be avoidant behavior in like our hobbies and our interests. Also, like, let's say somebody loans you money to start a new hobby, or like helps you float your new business, right? So there are instances where like other people are involved, right? A lot of the things that we need to work on are in order to make our relationships better. It's not the things itself we need to work on. It's we want to make sure that these things do not get in the way of our relationship with God, right? We don't want to have like, I'm so inconsistent. I this was a track that I used to play. This was like a thing that was always in my head. Like, I'm so inconsistent. I'm so inconsistent. I was consistently inconsistent. Um, the one thing you're consistent at is being inconsistent. And I would get so mad at myself. Um, But what I started to realize is that my condemnation would actually make me quit harder, and it would make me start to withdraw from people, because I don't want to tell you about what I'm doing, because I'm going to see that look in your eye when I tell you I'm not doing it anymore, and that's going to embarrass me. So now I'm not engaging with people about the things that I care the most about, the things that I'm really interested in right now, the things that are a big part of my brain space in my life right now. I'm not telling people about, because I'm going to be embarrassed about it in 3 weeks. That's getting in the way of my relationships. There can also be like just this fear of being seen as unreliable, and Um, yeah, and it just makes you feel like you can't be taken seriously sometimes. There's other things that I've done where I've like started to promote it and then like I burn out of it and I can't do it. I did this music contest and I had to like post on social media all the time. I hated that. I hated it so much. Hated it. But it was a great learning experience. Did I want to just hop up and do it again? No, I didn't. The trauma that can exacerbate that and turn it into something that's problematic is just like the way you can feel people perceiving you as you're trying to be vulnerable and be honest, and then you don't want to be vulnerable and be honest anymore. But if you have friends who do similar things, like there's a couple things you notice. One is obviously you're not going to be rejected by people who understand it. You're just like, yeah, like you're good at a lot of things, or you like to try a lot of things, or whatever. There's also nothing actually like morally good or bad about having a closet full of art supplies, right? Like if you're hoarding them, okay, that that's a problem, right? If you're secretly proud of the fact that like you have all this stuff at your disposal. I don't know. There could be weird heart things that creep
Secretly
in.
proud that you have three
There's something okay, but there's like a weird thing with craft
cross
supplies.
stitch.
You feel rich when you have. I'm telling you, drop a comment in the chat. Clean, like new underwear, new socks, and fresh craft and office supplies make you feel rich. It's like a type of currency that is unmatched. Like if I have an organized drawer of one of those things, it is like the most beautiful thing. It is so wonderful. Please tell me somebody out there, drop me a comment, make it a 5-star comment, be like, heck yeah, I love my office supplies. I love my craft supplies. And it makes you not want to open them. And that's a problem because then you're squandering the things that God's providing you. So that is
The definition of hoarding.
the definition of hoarding.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we do need to use, you know what? I have a really sad story. I asked for one of those grow your own crystal kits for Christmas when I was in like third or fourth or fifth grade. And I got it for Christmas and I was super excited and I was like, I'm gonna save this for like such a special time. And I feel like this is definitely a neurodivergent thing. I've had many conversations with people about this. And like 2 days after, like right after Christmas, the first day we could have had a snow day, we had a snow day. And so we stayed home. My mom was like, why don't you do your crystals today? And I was like, I just couldn't. I was like, I don't know if it's special enough. Y'all, every day is special enough for your most special dishes, for your most special craft supplies, for your most special shirts. Wear and do all your favorite things as much as you can because there's nothing morally negative about doing that.
Careful with your neck. Yep.
Shh, quiet you. I love you. Quiet, fish.
All right. So
No, but seriously
yeah,
though, like Marie Kondo got something right. She really did.
she did.
If it makes you happy,
Brings joy.
I know it's so hard to not be like spark of
I
joy. Yeah.
guess.
It's like the echolalia thing though.
Oh,
This is another thing we're going to talk about. When you feel super culturally inappropriate, but really it just feels so good to say something. It's like those are like the in-house stims, like that's all I'm going to say.
pushing up.
Yeah, but switching tasks, and I think I like to, we're going to talk more about this too in terms of like vocation and calling and stuff like that. But I find that just like interests, like your biggest passions will continue to resurface. And if you don't feel shame over moving on from it, you won't be embarrassed to go back to it. So letting go of that, I think, is really important, especially for creative neurodivergence, especially for entrepreneurs, especially for artists and musicians. It can feel like, oh gosh, like I remember last time. Who cares if God has put that thing in you and you can't stop thinking about it and you're just like ashamed of it? That's not for you. Shame's from the devil. Get rid of it. Kick it out. Go back and do the thing that you want, okay?
Mhm.
That connotation has been structured by the devil to keep you from doing things that are meaningful and that God has intention for, he has a plan for. So just a little encouragement, like please do not feel condemnation about switching up your tasks or switching up your focus. I tend to have like a focus of like it's like maybe like monthly or like every 2 months it might change. Like I am working on a musical with some friends. We worked on it pretty consistently for like a bunch of months, and now we meet like once a week ish for like an hour ish, if that happens. And we're all creative and we're all working on a lot of different things. So we're just kind of holding excitement for all the things that we're all doing and able to say it's not that we're not committed to this, we're just committed to a lot of things and we care about a lot of things, and we work best on this when we have our full attention on it, and we know that because we care about it we will come back to it, but we don't have to feel like, oh, we didn't hit our deadline, or oh, we didn't. It's like they're all self-imposed, right? That's the hardest part about restructuring a neurodivergent life, is that like you have to set your own pace and your own bars,
Mhm.
um, knowing that some of these things are morally neutral. It's just a matter of, does this work for me, or do I need to kind of wear the mask in this area? Do I need to conform in this area because it's best for my relationships, or because I really need to for my job, or like you have to decide those things, like what is needed so that more bandwidth is available for purpose driven and soul nourishing activity and space for God to work with us.
You know, something did strike me about this is that there are some ways task switching or hobby switching that I think is pretty unhealthy. If you are doing it in order to fit in or to buy yourself some sort of social capital, I think I see this a lot, I think more recently, where there's almost like these social media driven fads in like hobbies that come in and out, and people kind of just follow that rather than seek it for its own enjoyment's sake. And some people wrap around being like a part of the crowd that's doing the thing at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that could be kind of an interest in itself. And well, yeah, but you said it's about the intention.
But yeah,
Yeah.
again, we're here with the intention. I think one of like one thing that's helped me to view my actions as aligned with the things of God or not is this like a multi-step sort of Palinko uh, system I have. So the first thing is, does it arise out of me or someone else? Right? That's one. And then the second question out of that is, if it arrives out of someone else or outside of my body, does this thing make me more isolated?
Hmm.
And not like physically. Some of these things may bring you to crowds. But when I mean make you more isolated, make the person who you really are isolated. The person under the mask that you might be wearing will be hurt by how successful that mask is. You know what I mean? So,
Like if I buy myself a motorboat and I take my friends out water skiing, but I can't stand the sound of the engine.
yeah, or
And
the
and
vibration.
and then I go home and I'm mean to my spouse because I was so overstimulated from taking them water skiing because I saw it on TikTok, which is absolutely ridiculous. See what I'm getting at. If your attempt at conformity or like trying to make
To win
friends
friends.
to win friends, yeah, right, because that was part of the autism test, right? Was like, how do you know your friends? And what was my answer? Oh, I do these things with my friends. We do the same things together. We have the same, so it's like there can be this conflation
Mhm.
of like, if I can spend time with this person without feeling uncomfortable, then they're my friend.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that
Yeah,
can
yeah.
be that can be misleading.
So that two
Hmm.
step sort of situation, if it comes within myself or from somewhere else,
Right.
and does this make the person who I really am more isolated? Then I feel I have a better grasp on whether this thing that I'm doing, this trait, or this propensity that I have is aligned with God or not.
Do you have an example of that, like for yourself,
For
and something
myself,
you've participated in that
mm,
you realized wasn't aligned with God's purpose for you?
like oh,
What about golf?
golf. Okay, yeah, golf. Let's talk about golf real quick. I like the idea of golf. I think golf is a great place for men to make more friends, to create a community, right? Like, I think it's great. Uh, I don't like playing golf. I like golf courses. I like cart. I like gear. But the playing of the golf, I don't like. And
So let me pause right there. What has been your evolution of your relationship with the game of golf?
oh, I wanted to play it like so desperately. And then like, oh, it's a great way to like meet friends or whatever.
And what inspired that?
I don't know, seeing people. I don't know, other people like that.
Okay, so it didn't originate from
It
you.
didn't originate for
Okay,
me.
so that checks your first box.
Yeah, it made me more frustrated, and I didn't make any more friends.
Aw,
No,
but
doesn't mean I won't go play golf later,
right.
but in my life. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm not.
I mean, you still have a really nice bag and
Yeah,
some
I know it's so
clubs in your.
stupid. Oh man.
But we don't have to be ashamed of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
you know what? Maybe you're a lawyer one day, and you know what? It's nice and quiet on the golf course, and there's a lot of space, and maybe there comes a time where you like how. So, what is it that like? Was it something that like from a sensory standpoint, or something from like a mental standpoint that was like not
I
refreshing
don't
for
like the
you?
movements.
Oh,
I
that's
don't like
interesting.
golf. I don't like swinging a golf club like you're supposed to swing a golf club.
Hmm.
It's unnatural and it feels weird.
Oh, okay.
It's like it if for like the one out of like 100 times you actually do it right and it
Mm-hmm.
works, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But like in it itself is like it's not swinging like a baseball bat.
Mm-hmm.
It's not swinging a tennis racket. It's none of that,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah, no, I just didn't like the feedback of it.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. I never really knew that, but you were doing that before we went through the testing process.
Hmm.
Not like right before, but like so that's
Levels
something
before.
that was a very good example of that
Yeah.
because we just didn't know. Yeah, it's the task switching is that you can feel awful. And also I used to have this track in my head of tripping at the finish line. Like there's that ADHD thing where when you get 80% of the thing done, those last few details become the hardest details. And instead of internalizing the shame of not being able to do it all ourselves, right? As somebody who's like, the high masking autism profile and the ADHD profile, a lot of us are autodidacts, which means that we can teach ourselves stuff. So we feel all of this potential in us, right? We have all of these skills. Like I used to really resonate with the idea of that television show, The Pretender.
Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that TV show in forever.
Yeah, because I always felt like I could probably like I probably could do that. Like if you locked me in a room with like YouTube and like the materials, like I could probably figure like 70% of stuff out.
Okay, quick rabbit. Do you think like high masking autistics make for really good spies?
Oh yeah. You could mask your butt off.
Oh man.
Well, yeah, and also like I think, all performing is just masking because you have like a persona. Like now Jim Carrey, right? Go look up Jim Carrey's testimony. I want to watch it, but like I've heard him say like even like Jim Carrey as his celebrity persona was
Is
a
it?
mask. So you learn what people like and you just figure it out, right? Like, and it's pretty easy to tell what people like pretty quickly. Like the social nimbleness, like I remember in high school, I would absolutely pride myself on my amalgamation of my personality. I would be like, I have this person's fashion, I have this person's laugh, I have like this person's like I toss my hair like this person. I literally did that.
Oh boy.
Like I'm gonna booty touche like this person, like absolutely
What? I'm
ridiculous.
sorry.
Okay,
Run that back. Run that back.
if you know, you know. Okay, it was the early 2000s. Anyway, I was like, those okay, 90s girls, 90s girlies, uh, that fashion thing where you got to pick the head and then you got to pick the shirt and you got to pick the bottom and then you'd scrape the crayon over it and it would make the thing and you could change it whenever you want. make it be like a little more this or a little more that. I played sports. I liked fashion, and I was an artsy girl. So I just like would go round and round and round with all the combinations. Oh, now I'm vibing like this. Now I'm vibing like that. Now I look more this. Now I look more that. Like I knew how to like tweak, like down to like how many buttons and how many tendrils. Like it changes the vibe, and you learn that like as like there's something about that high masking girly profile. We just know how to do it, and you can ask any of us, and we're like, oh yeah, that's why it's so tiring, because you know how to do everything. So you're like, well, what should I do?
But you're
Well,
doing them like in a falsehood.
yes, but you don't know you're doing it in falsehood. And you think that's what everybody's doing. It's just so weird. It's so weird to look back at like what I thought was just like a normal part, or you think you're like some savant and you're like seeing you're like playing 4D chess and so there's this weird pride and shame are the two
Different
sides of the
sides of
same
the
coin,
coin.
right? So you feel weird and you feel other, but you also feel like superior and like above it all in a weird way because you're just like, I see how stupid all this stuff is.
Oh man.
So behind closed doors, like it's just, my sister and I have all kinds of conversations like this, but it's like I'm being vulnerable here because this is not necessarily how I view things exactly now because I've let go a lot of my self-criticism, which has allowed me to let go of a lot of my criticism of others and to understand that like, people cope in all kinds of different ways and we're just trying to live, right? We're just trying to live. We're just trying to figure out what Jesus wants us to do. And it's messy and we learn stuff in different orders. So it's okay to just allow people to be behind in a way that you're ahead, you know? That's okay. And it's okay to be behind someone else in the way that they're ahead. And we don't have to feel bad about that. It's been a lot of weird pivoting in this episode, but I like it.
Wrapping it up.
Wrapping it up. So we've rattled off the list, right? We've talked about a couple that have quite a bit of nuance that I think affect probably most of us. But really, what we're bringing home here is that a lot of these habits, a lot of these traits have had negative biases superimposed over them. And some of these we have taken with us and we have told ourselves that that's the truth, and they're not necessarily the truth. So we need to look at, is there actually a moral or ethical failing here in what I'm doing? And it's going to depend on the context of what you're doing and all the peripherals of the people and the time and what is it that God has asked you to do in this moment. Those are the peripherals. So we have to consider that. Do I have a thing that happened in my past that is making this feel worse? Or do I have a thing in my past that has told me that, like, I need to rely on this activity? So, for example, if we are down a rabbit hole, hyperfixating on something, or like we have our special interest that comforts us, is it something where it's the only thing that can comfort you? That's a problem, right? But is it because when you were a kid and you got yelled at, this was the only thing that would make you feel better? Okay, having trauma is not like morally your fault, right? Like, and even reacting out of that, you know what I'm saying? Like, having trauma responses is not your fault. But what we have to look at those things as God brings them up to us and He nudges us that sometimes we have to temper these responses and we have to offer them to God until He heals us of them. So that's very tricky, right? But just keeping in mind, like, I might have to take a couple minutes away when I notice this feeling happen in my body and let it die down a little bit before I make the decision of how I'm going to interact with the person or how I'm going to interact with the substance or whatever it is. And then also, we need to be able to reframe those things. We need to be able to say things like, you know what? My nervous system hit a limit and I really need alone time. So even though like I made plans with this person, I have to say, I'm so sorry, I have to cancel. That is not morally bad. Okay. If a person has a hard time keeping a relationship with you because of that, then you have to address that in a respectful way. And you got to do the friend stuff. You just have to do it. Um, which may be hard or easy for you depending on what you present with. Anyway, so bearing in mind, why did I do this thing, right? Remembering why you do a thing, that it's for regulation or it's because I felt unsafe or because I was overwhelmed, like if there are things that happen in the wake of that, we have to deal with those things. But to be able to reframe our activities, or like the fact that our dishes aren't done, to say, you know what, I'm saving my energy because I want to really be present for the kids in Sunday school tomorrow. So I'm going to save my energy for that. That can be really helpful. And then also just considering, just asking God, like, is there a spiritual component to this that you want to show me? And he will be kind and gentle, and he'll help you every step of the way, just like he has with everything else. Yeah. So those are the signposts that we want to stop and look at.
Sure.
As we're engaging with our own attitudes towards our behaviors. And we're going to make this into a nice little PDF for you to just kind of give you those things to look at, so that you can decide to remove that shame and condemnation, to offer that to God so he can take that away from you, to recognize it and then give it to God so that he can take it away from you. And then you can live a more regulated life, not hating yourself so much. Self-hatred is a real thing for people with these neurotypes, and it's something that we don't have to live with. We have to forgive ourselves. We got to let some stuff go. Recognize that some things that happened to us weren't our fault. Some of the ways people responded to us wasn't our fault.
Yeah, and this is where like being in a community of people who understand you is like so very important.
Yeah.
Right? Not only for direction, but for support.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a multifaceted, like there's a good reason why we are designed to live in a society, because we need each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that takes intention, because we can be
Avoidant of that.
reclusive and introverted, and
Yeah. And again, I'm pointing back to the questions I pose. Is this thing that you're doing coming from yourself or from outside of yourself?
including your coping mechanisms.
Including your coping mechanisms.
Whoa.
Yeah. And do these coping mechanisms allow who you truly are to be able to be more fully in community and to engage with it better? Or does it hurt you? Does it score points for your mask, or does it score points for who you really are? Some of the mask is to engage, and some of that mask is to be scary,
To be
fend
right.
fend people off.
For your real self to be obscured,
Yeah.
because it's been rejected in the
Yeah,
past.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with that.
Woo. Fuego.
Mucho fuego.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for being here, being part of this community. You can join our page on Facebook. You can join up on Instagram, and also please subscribe to our email list. We're going to be giving out some great resources, including a PDF to, kind of as guidelines for what we just talked about, so that you can kind of cross-check your own thoughts and behaviors, and just have a place to start, just to be a little bit mindful as you're judging yourself every day. Please don't. Only God is judge. We don't need you to be part of it.
Knock it off.
Also, we love you. So just remember, be kind to yourself. It's not a straight line, but you can turn down the fire
And embrace the spice.
for the glory of God. Peace be with you.